Yo, what it do? Live from the fantasy heaven, straight from the 207. It's me, your man, Johnny Main. I'm here today with Scott Fishbowl 13 semifinalist, betting guru God himself, Nick Wilcox.
Ah!
What up, bro?
What up, my guy? What is happening?
Like, not much, bro. Not much, man. Just chilling. Not too hot here in the studio here today. A little muggy outside, so doing all right, man. How was the weekend?
What happens when you get a new haircut? When you have to go to your brother's wedding, you know what I'm saying? Like this is what happens, right?
Okay, all right. How was that, man? Good time?
Oh yeah, no, yeah, great time.
Yeah.
Ooh, stories for days too.
Can only imagine, man.
So that was lots of fun for sure. But yeah, like just nothing beats on a Saturday night of just drinking, dancing, partying, and seeing your brother finally tied a knot. 14 years.
All right, congrats, Nick's brother. You know what I mean? Congrats, Nick's brother.
Shout out to my guy Jerome. Jerome out
there. All right, play up on the Himalaya.
Let's tell him we said that. Matter of fact, I'm gonna send him that link.
Oh man.
Without further ado, guys, the fantasy football show. Is there a new king in the West? We got NFL news that includes Judkins. Is he going to be suspended? We'll dive into that a little bit more as we update you guys. But that being said, we're right into that. NFL news in general, they call it Nick's news in this situation. That's Johnny, not me. I didn't make this segment. Johnny did. But the Judkins situation, got arrested for assaulting a woman. And now, yeah, there could be a suspension looming. The NFL is not commenting on it at this time. What does that do for him? What does that do for us fantasy people? I feel there's going to be an angle to wherever you see fit. Just breaking this down, like I think from where Judkins was going was pretty fair at the moment. I know in best ball formats he was going like mid-7th round, so that's probably at it's close, mid-7, close to the 7-8 turn in some cases. But everyone kind of expected because they spent, Brown spent that second round capital on him that he is going to be the lead back technically. Who knows what's going to happen for this situation? This could just be just a damper of like, this has happened, whatever. However, the interesting part to me is that he hasn't signed his rookie contract still. So that's where things get a little interesting. I don't think it'll get there where he just, they don't come to terms, but it could be a little bit of a leveraging tool if you're the Browns. So, Johnny, what are your thoughts on that before I move on to other news?
Quinshawn wasn't a guy that I was like actively going after. I was trying to wait a little bit later on in drafts to eyeball Dylan Sampson before all this even started anyway. Probably have more of Dylan Sampson and less of Quinshawn Judkins for sure. Obviously, don't know what it entails. It's a really crappy situation for the Browns to find themselves in, and Quinshawn Judkins. There could be, if there is a suspension, I think, if it's a dynasty situation, I don't think it really changes anything in the aspect of where you draft him. If it is a 2-game suspension, a 4-game suspension, a 3-game suspension, that doesn't really devalue him in dynasty. I think obviously when you look at redraft, I think even in best ball, I don't think it hurts. When you look at redraft, obviously you have to take that into consideration. As far as him missing those couple of games and what does that do? Could be a situation where, just being dramatic, what if Dylan Sampson gets on the field and he absolutely tears it up and Quinshawn Judkins doesn't have the opportunity to get that job back? Or if he does, it's in a much smaller capacity. So, again, for me, doesn't really do a lot for me. Like I said, I don't have a lot of him in best ball. He wasn't somebody that I was actively targeting, even in redraft, Scott Fishbowl, or anything like that. So, just bad situation for the Browns is really what all I got to say, man.
Yep, franchises that just can't get it right for whatever reason. I mean, Judkins was someone like, he was someone that I really wasn't, like you said, wasn't aiming for when it came to some of these best ball drafts at the moment. And now it's like his price is probably going to drop a little bit just because of the news. But again, this could be just like the Rashid Rice news from the other year, where it's like, oh, yeah, just rested for whatever. Oh, yeah, we'll see. Well, whatever. The NFL, again, it's like really versus where they had been before. They're very lackadaisical. They very are into wanting to know what happened deep. So that is that for overall. But I mean, something to keep paying attention to. Could it be something where again, like, he goes into the year unsigned or something because of they hear the money they want to see from his camp? I don't know. But second round pick is pretty high capital, so I don't think we don't see that extreme. But like you said, Johnny, I think that Jerome Ford is someone that could start, getting on people's draft boards. Again, especially those later double-digit rounds in best ball formats, and then obviously for season-long purposes, probably the same thing because he could have an opportunity to at least have some usage in that role, as we saw last year. Along with Dylan Sampson. So it just remains to be seen. Like there's a lot of angles that people could take this, but I do think that obviously waiting it out and seeing what else happens with it is definitely smart. Moving on to the other news. So the other news in the NFL was Jaquan Jennings. Good Lord. It's like the Niners just love getting prima donnas, love getting guys that are overall just want to be paid constantly because now fast forward from a year, rewind to a year before. Brandon Ayuk, right? Won his money, finally got his contract extension after kicking and screaming and stuff and saying he wanted to get traded and da-da-da. What happened? He got hurt. Yeah. And now the Niners are on the books for mad money. Well, fast forward to today. Jaquan Jennings. Reports out of the Niners is that he wants a new deal. According to Adam Scheffler, is that Jennings isn't expected to hold out a training camp if he doesn't receive a new deal, but he has approached the Niners about it. He's like, I'm not going to do the Ayuk thing. However, come on, pay it, nigga. Right. Yeah. So, that being said, Jennings is currently making $4.2 million against the cap. He's on the final year of that. He signed a $15 million extension over the offseason. So, yeah, like it's something to keep our eyes on. But again, like you said, reports are he's going to hold out, which is smart. I honestly think you should do the Jamar Chase thing where it's like you keep on showing up and everything. Keep on, showing the organization that, hey, I'm still your guy. I'm still showing up, da-da-da. You know what I mean? But, at the end of the day, it's like, I'd like to have some more money, please, and play nice versus like doing the other thing where you're showing your ass and you're just not just show up at all, and then that doesn't make you look like a good teammate, and then people can't vouch for you. So,
yeah, his situation is really unique because he's obviously in a locker room with. You seen what happened last year with Christian McCaffrey. You seen what happened with Brandon Ayuk. George Kittle got his money. They still got Trent Williams they got to get ready to take care of. They just shipped out Deebo Samuel. So, I think it's just a really unique situation for him and where he's at and what he was able to do last year for the 49ers. And, man, sometimes there's these situations where, you might not get a better discount on a guy like this than right now. Because if he goes out there and he puts up a monster year, then obviously the asking price is gonna, it's gonna be incredibly higher. So, you can never fault a man for wanting to go get more money, especially if it's out there for him to get. I think both of us are in the same camp as far as Jaquan Jennings, as far as fantasy capital goes and how we view him. But yeah, like I said, man, I don't blame the guy for trying to get paid. For all of us working class people out here, if we had the opportunity to get more money, we absolutely would. Go get more money. So for Jaquan Jennings, man, hopefully that happens for him and he gets more money. But in the meantime, as fantasy managers, we want to see him. We want to see him on the field. We want to see him making plays. So yeah, man, that's what I got for Jaquan Jennings.
Yeah, definitely.
What about your man, dude? What about your man?
Garrett Wilson?
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, I was getting ready to get there.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Get like what I mean, like on a day like with Jawan Jennings, and you see Garrett Wilson get paid, man. Like, just saying, bro.
Just getting to that. Garrett Wilson, the Jets have given him a agreed to a 4-year contract extension worth $130 million.
The bag.
You know what I'm saying? The deal includes $90 million guaranteed money, according to NFL.com's Grant Gordon. I was going to say Cardone, but Gordon is the reporting name. So, Garrett Wilson, going to be a Jet for another 4 or 5 years-ish or so, and that's not surprising because he's been showing and proving constantly that he is the alpha receiver for that team. And, I'm definitely excited for Garrett Wilson to get his money. I hope that it, turns into, again, Justin Fields having a phenomenal year for us and turning this franchise around from what it's been over the last 15 years. Sometimes more. But that being said, Garrett Wilson getting his money. Yeah, Jennings wants some more money, but the Niners are stingy. So, you already know what that is. It's like you got to apply and plead with them, basically, try to rip things out of them for them to really see they're worth this and worth that. So, but other news I had was some smaller notes. Anthony Richardson, according to Colts.com, he's going to be eased back into practice. Once he's clear to return, which obviously makes sense. But right now, it's like Anthony Richardson is pretty much the QB2 at the moment, unless something, injury-wise were to happen or something along those lines. But it looks like all things point to, at the moment, Daniel Jones, unless like Anthony Richardson comes up and starts wowing constantly, and then preseason does the same thing. It seems like more of a long shot now than it was before, all the shoulder stuff that he was dealing with during the offseason. So that's something you can take note of. Xavier Worthy, no news we'll get to on that, but was told by, interview with Up and Adams, K. Adams, obviously, that, the Chiefs overall are going to be, Andy Reid basically told his offense to, quote unquote, when you come back, get your hamstrings ready. So I don't know what that means per se, in terms of like, hey, like, does that mean we're going to be doing more aerial things for this Chiefs offense for the first time last couple of years? Or is it just hearsay? Hard to tell, obviously, because sometimes these trends you only really pick up and really see when it starts to, the game start playing. I do think from a Chiefs perspective, from an offense perspective, you should be throwing the ball a bit more downfield. Hopefully we get Patrick Mahomes to a point where he goes from 35 touchdowns back to 40-something touchdowns, potentially 50, potentially. Going back to a worthy deep threat that becomes a really great receiver overall, if he could really put it all together, continue his momentum from last year. Same thing with Rashee Rice before he got injured. So, I mean, there's a lot to like in that quote, but at the same time, only time will tell it when it comes to that.
Facts.
Only time will tell. Kyron Williams, Rams camp, basically, small note about that. Jordan Rodrigue, she's awesome. Remember her from the Carolina beat. She's on the Rams beat now for the Athletic. She's reporting that Kyron got a contract extension worked out before training camp is over. And then last but not least, the news that I saw that was somewhat intriguing, but at the same time, like, makes a lot of sense. Although I do think that the Carolina Panthers should be a little bit more patient, is that from Panthers camp, is that there's rumblings about, the Panthers may have to pivot if Bryce Young is not the guy. So it's starting to look like it's the make or break year for Bryce Young quietly. But it remains to be seen. I don't know how. Ideally, I think Bryce Young is someone that can still be a guy that can be molded into a solid NFL quarterback. I do think that franchises in general need to, especially when you just bought this franchise, David Tepper, not too long ago, you're overall just like rushing, we bought success now and for our city, so I can make more money and this is type of thing. But in terms of the Panthers, I think they have a nice nucleus going. I do think that building more pieces for this offense around him this past offseason made a ton of sense. So it remains to be seen how that goes. Hopefully, as far as everybody's concerned, with Tech McMillan and stuff like that, it could be the next Megatron. I don't know. We'll see. But who knows? This Panthers offense. I hope this is right. From a fantasy perspective, I mean, Bryce Young's still going to be your backup in super flex leagues or QB2 leagues, whatever. But I do think he's someone that, for best ball drafts, I think he's going underrated a little bit based on how he's finished. Last year, over the last 7 games, Bryce Young had 20.3 fantasy points per game. So, yeah, hopefully, just like we were talking about with Worthy, it's the overall, trajectory of, all right, let's build on that momentum from last year.
Check that.
Speaking of Xavier Worthy, Johnny, without further ado.
Yeah. So in our verses tonight, we got Devonta Smith and Xavier Worthy going very, very close in ADP to each other. Right now, 5.4 for Devonta Smith, Xavier Worthy 5.5. For me, man,
fair.
This is just consensus overall right now. This is consensus in regards to redraft and best ball. For me, this one, when you talk about Xavier Worthy, so I'll start there because you just, gave us that quote from Xavier Worthy. One of the things for me is just Xavier Worthy. I don't know if he's the guy for me for redraft. I think best ball, all day long, for sure. And just, obviously some things here, man, he didn't see 100 targets over the entire year. And this is obviously with a season where Rashee Rice is out. Obviously, we know Travis Kelce on the back end of things. Hollywood Brown was in Hollywood, Florida. It just, there were a lot of opportunities there for Xavier Worthy. And for somebody to be going in the 5th round who didn't have 100 targets and ironically enough, did not have one single 100-yard game last year.
Nope.
For me, that's a little bit aggressive. And then the way that they used him last year, I know you just gave us that quote about what Andy Reid said as far as, having his hamstrings ready. But he had 67 targets under 10 yards last year out of his 98. So clearly they weren't using him in a space to go down the field. And then for me, he had his 2 most heaviest targeted weeks, which were week 15 and week 16. He combined for 111 yards and 1 touchdown. Again, week 15, week 16, 22 targets, 111 yards and 1 touchdown. If I'm drafting a guy in the 5th round and he gets 22 targets and that's all he's giving me, Houston, we have a problem. And then he was also ranked 44th among wide receivers as far as target share. So for me, I am not in on Xavier Worthy. I will let whoever else in whatever draft I'm in take that shot on him. In the 5th round, you can have it. Now we transition to Devonta Smith. Did a lot of his work last year in the slot. 46% of the snaps he took last year were from the slot. And one of the things that I found interesting, just kind of going through things, was he actually led the Philadelphia Eagles last year in red zone target share at 20.4%, which is really crazy when you think about all the weapons that they have. I know it's a really concentrated passing game with Devonta Smith, AJ Brown, and a little bit of Dallas Goedert and a little bit of Saquon. But for him to be the guy in the red zone last year for the Philadelphia Eagles, I think that says a lot about him. And then watching all the targets and receptions that he had last year from the slot, one of the things that really popped out to me on film was Devonta Smith is a tough guy, man. For him to be only about $190 soaking wet, he's a tough guy. And there were lots of times where he caught the ball and he wasn't trying to run over people, but he's not afraid of getting hit. And outside of him lining up in the slot, the routes that he ran were a lot of in-breaking routes last year. And he did a lot of damage. So you could see where Saquon, they would line up in the shotgun, and maybe Devonta Smith would maybe be on the slot on the right-hand side, and Saquon would be to the left in the shotgun. That play action there with Saquon was nasty work last year, for sure. Having him work the middle of the field. So yeah, man, like I am definitely good with taking Devonta Smith. And then the Philadelphia Eagles last year, they had 448 passes. That was 29 fewer than the next closest team, which was Baltimore. So that makes sense, obviously, when you have an offense that features Derrick Henry, features Saquon Barkley. Obviously, they're going to run the ball quite a bit. And then I did my exercise that I always do. I always like to take, especially just in this situation, I like to compare both players and see how they did, whether it's like in their first year or whether they're, in the same year trajectory. Devonta Smith, former Heisman Trophy winner, beat him in all the stats for sure, except for the one which was actually total touchdowns, which he had 6. He had 6 receiving and 3 rushing. But from a receiving side of things, Devonta Smith had 916 yards and 5 touchdowns in his rookie year. Xavier Worthy obviously had 638 and 6 touchdowns. The catch percentage was very similar to both of those guys, but Devonta Smith is on the field all the time for sure. And then when you look at Devonta Smith, man, and you're saying, hey, basically the last 2 years, last year he didn't go for 1,000 yards, but the 2 previous yards, he's been 2 previous seasons, he's been over 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns in both seasons. Last year he only played in the 13 games, had 68 receptions and 833 yards and 8 touchdowns. Man, it's not even close, honestly, man. Like, it's Devonta Smith by a Mississippi mile for me, man. Houston.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, I'm like, where'd you go? Like,
what made you hold your breath for a second?
Like, what's going on?
I love the analysis. What I will say about them is that, for me, because like we're going from a consensus. So right now, 5th round for these guys right now. Makes a ton of sense. But it depends on what you want for your archetype for receiver. Devonta Smith last year played a career percentage, 41% from the slot, and that was under Kellen Moore offense. So hopefully that somewhat continues, because I do think that he can take a lot of advantage on the inside, especially if you're telling me that the Eagles last year were last in passing attempts last year and won the Super Bowl. I'm not going to say their whole offense is going to change or whatever, but I do like how there's room for growth still with Devonta Smith. Last year, wide receiver 13 and touchdown rate. He was also wide receiver 13 in yards per target, Devonta Smith. So, I like Devonta Smith a tad bit better than Xavier Worthy, because I like the more of the consistent, floor potential to ceiling, versus like with Worthy, it's kind of boomer best, all or not. Like you said, Worthy didn't finish in the regular season. He didn't have higher than 80 yards receiving in one game. So like you said, that's definitely concerning. The other thing is that, again, risky profile, along with Rashee Rice coming into the fold again, being healthy, and who knows how they're going to be deployed still. Xavier Worthy could still be the guy that's going to take the top off the defense. However, is this more of, will we see more of the Xavier Worthy continue building blocks from, after the regular season where he killed it? He had averaged almost 9 targets per game, along with 90 yards per game, 12 yards per catch, and 6.4 yards average up a target. In fantasy terms, that would have been 21 points per game during that stretch after the regular season into those playoffs, the Super Bowl. Like along with Rashee Rice, Hollywood, stuff like that being implemented in this offense, I kind of find it hard for Xavier Worthy to be the guy that he might, finish, wide receiver finish. He might be better than where he's currently being drafted. However, for me, I want Devonta Smith, because I do think that with the Eagles, like you said, this goes back to the Eagles. They're not going to change the offense completely, but I don't think that sustainably they can consistently do what they did last year in an NFL like this. So I do think that with Devonta Smith, I think there's room for growth. And if you're telling me they're going pretty much the same area right now, give me Devonta Smith because of the overall like nicer floor week by week for season-long purposes. Like best ball, you could take a more of a gander on Xavier Worthy because of the ceiling outcome games that he, potentially can have. I probably would still take Devonta Smith though, because I do like, again, the Eagles setup. Like we all know that it's not like the Eagles and Chiefs offenses are so different. It's just more about, again, like it's that, tighter, like I know where the ball's going. Like, versus like with the Chiefs offense, sometimes you're like, ooh, they're going to be trying to run the ball a little bit more, or, certain games, or, hey, they're struggling to extend to 30. They only score 17 points per game. So, ooh, like,
Well,
so it's
with Xavier Worthy last year, man, one of the other things actually I didn't even call out was like you had talked about Mahomes just a second ago. Like
yeah.
last year was a career low for him and like everything, like deep throws,
Yep.
deep completion percentage, like so all the things that Xavier Worthy does really well, like Patrick Mahomes didn't do last year. And then on top of that, like the other element of this too is a lot of things were lost in Philadelphia as far as players and free agency. The Kansas City Chiefs, I think you've seen it last year, like they win football games. So I don't know if it's a space where Patrick Mahomes is going to come out slinging it again. But with Devonta Smith, the Philadelphia Eagles offense has been the Philadelphia Eagles offense over for the last 3-4 years. Like they're gonna run the football, whether it's with DeAndre Swift, whether it was with Miles Sanders, or whether it's with Saquon Barkley. You're getting the same exact thing. You're getting the same formula. Like they're gonna run the football. So like for me, man, I don't even want to pretend like I would take Xavier Worthy even for a moment if like I'm sitting there in round 5 and I've got my two running backs, or my running back and my two wide receivers. If I can get Devonta Smith as my wide receiver 3, or if I can even get him as my wide receiver 2, just as consistent as he has been. I think last year 15.3 fantasy points per game, which was the most in his entire career so far. And obviously he's got the pedigree as a former Heisman Trophy winner. Man, like I'm all in on it. You know what I mean? And the run game is there to be able to, the threat of Jalen Hurts running, the threat of Saquon Barkley running. Like it does something to defenses when you think about Devonta Smith versus Xavier Worthy. I think it's more about the personnel for the Philadelphia Eagles that causes fits. Obviously the play calling does as well. But then when you get to Xavier Worthy, it's more about scheme for him and Andy Reid, scheming those guys up, getting them open. And like, he's just not going to be able to have the same kind of volume. And I think this is just a situation, if you're drafting, still waiting to see that number 1 pop up on our screen. But if you see this, I'm just waiting for trying to tell people like, hey man, like Xavier Worthy, that's not the move for you for the Kansas City Chiefs, because if you believe in Rashee Rice and Travis Kelce, and Xavier Worthy, then yeah, you probably believe that Patrick Mahomes is going to throw 50 touchdowns. If he wasn't trending that away last year, I don't think he's going to be trending that way this year. So for me, I think again, Xavier Worthy is going way too high. I think it's just recency bias. The last thing that people they seen what he did in the playoffs. And I was thinking about this. This reminds me of when Gabe Davis was a thing. And it was just because of the playoff run. So I'm cool. Y'all can have it. Give me the Heisman Trophy winner, man. I'll take him, bro.
Yeah. And I exactly agree with that. It's something I was thinking about earlier.
Yeah.
It was like, Gabe Davis, what up for 3 touchdowns? Or he's going to be the man in Buffalo next year. Like, dude, no.
No, and like, and he's not, and he's not, and
he was
he's
going
not
like the 6th round, like, you know what I'm saying, like crazy of that year, the following year too. I'm like, yo, people are wild.
But there's nothing there that suggests or highlights, Xavier Worthy being relevant in the red zone like Devonta Smith is. There's nothing there, nothing relevant from a snap share perspective. There's nothing there from, a target share perspective. There's nothing there that suggests that Xavier Worthy can be a featured guy on this offense, other than the fact that he's really, really fast. That's it, man. So, yeah. So we got that one, man. So Devonta Smith, I think, is where we're both heading. So then I'm gonna go to a couple of one-hit wonders here. Word to Smiles and South Star. If you don't know, you gotta ask somebody.
Oh my gosh.
And word to Mims. This is why I'm hot. 2 first-round tight end potential bust here. You're getting it later on in your draft, man. You filled out your roster. You're at a space where you punted tight end, comes up to about round 13. It's round 13, and now you get to choose between Mims aka Kyle Pitts, or Smiles and South Star Dalton Kincaid to be your tight end one because you punted? Who are you picking, Nick, and why are you picking Nick?
Oh man! All right, first before we go into that, let's give some context, right? When it comes to Dalton Kincaid, right? This is someone. First of all, both of these guys have been a guy that people are like, been like, oh, this is gonna be the breakout year. It's gonna happen. This guy's gonna break out. He's gonna do it. No, dang it! Why did I start him? He only gave me 2 points. Well, I'll tell you one thing. To Dalton Kincaid, right? The problem has been the thorn in people's sides has literally been Dawson Knox. Because Dawson Knox also plays tight end. And most of the time, when the Bills want to play offense, hopefully they're on the field. Dalton Kincaid on third down, however, has a snap share clip jump up from normally last season was 42% of the snaps to 64% on third down. So the whole thing with Dalton Kincaid, though, is that he really is a nice move, tight end. It's just, again, he shares the field with another tight end. He overall, as well as a tight end, had the third highest uncatchable balls. So uncatchable targets, I should say. And that was only behind McBride and Bowers. So the good news and bad news, right? The bad news is Dalton Kincaid still hasn't had that breakout yet. And we don't know if it's going to happen per se. On paper, it should happen. But unless they start really using Dawson Knox, it's hard for a tight end in general to break out in fantasy when this guy is only playing less than 50% of the downs in general, right? That's very hard to do. So if you're Dalton Kincaid, you're hoping that, again, more responsibility is added to him this year. He sees more of that, higher end, 70%, I'm saying, in general. Hopefully that just jumps up for him. And that Buffalo Bills really want to utilize him when it comes to all his fastest. Because Dalton Kincaid can, really is a nice short intermediate route catcher. He can move. So it's one of those things where it's not exactly the player sometimes. It's just the system that they're in. Buffalo, we don't even know who, in general for best ball or whatever, we don't even know who to stack this team up with, let alone, who's the main, ball catching receiver constantly. We call it, Khalil Shakir, but even then sometimes it falls off. So with Dalton Kincaid, it's just everything's starting to be there. It's just we just would really, from a system perspective, hoping that, he becomes the guy. And there's that opportunity there. It's always been there. It's just the problem is it just hasn't, came to fruition just yet. But Kyle Pitts, right? Talk about post-hype sleeper. Kyle Pitts literally, he actually didn't start the year off that bad, honestly. 76% of Atlanta's offensive snaps in the first 7 games of the year. He overall had the 7th highest most as well, fantasy points, after 7 weeks for the tight end position, and he was on pace for that. Obviously, we know Kirk Cousins wasn't being Kirk Cousins, from old, and, the shakeup towards the end of the year was interesting as well. The problem with Pitts was that, again, from a number perspective, his playing time dropped. So week 8, he had that week 8 game where he had 91 yards and he had 2 touchdowns. You remember that because you drafted Kyle Pitts, remember?
Listen, hey man, I was here for it, man. I was here for it.
Yeah, I mean, so after that game, literally, he played 53% of Atlanta's offensive snaps on the board. And his first read target rate, according to Nathan Jake from PFF, first read target rate, good Lord, from 16% to 12%. When overall in 2023 it was 7.8. So there's improvement on that in terms of where quarterbacks want to find him. Again, the problem is, both of these tight ends just really have not put it together. Kyle Pitts, we know we've had some injury history. Dalton Kincaid had a little injury history as well, but he only missed a couple of games this past year. We all know Kyle Pitts from the year prior. The whole foot thing and stuff like that, the mysterious thing that's kept him out for quite some time the year prior. So if I'm picking one, if I'm picking one, I honestly, because it's just different, I'll go Kyle Pitts. Because although I like Dalton Kincaid, I do like the Buffalo offense. I just really don't. I really only want Josh Allen in that offense, and everybody else is like rolling the dice. Because it's I like Shakir, but I like him, and when I get him in drafts where he is going, where people don't think he's people are just overlooking him. That's the only time I like doing it. I like that from an offense perspective. I like Dalton Kincaid because of the offense that they're in. There's more opportunity potentially. Hasn't put it all together. Hopefully he does. But I'm going to go with Kyle Pitts because I do think that people are just so sour on this guy as a whole community. And it'd be just real funny, just like how we went back and forth during the season with Calvin Ridley, where like this would be the year. And it'd be funny enough just to grab my tight end too and just like, hey, yeah, but let's see what happens. Like, because that's where we're at this point, with Kyle Pitts. Like everybody is like so like, oh, this. So usually when that happens, people take a chance on it. And it's not gonna cost you as much either from years past, right? It's like with Kyle Pitts, you're like, you would still be like, oh man, this guy's gonna be this, an athletic freak, this, and the third. But the reason why I'm also going to say Kyle Pitts because I do think the Atlanta offense, in general, should hopefully get to a place where Atlanta is more of a fine-tuned offensive machine. They are a offense that has an easier schedule according to last year's metrics. So I tend to like that because matchups perspective and stuff like that. And then outside of you got Bijan, you got Drake London, you got Darnell Mooney, like. It's going to be Ray McCloud versus Kyle Pitts in terms of like that next pecking order. So I do like Kyle Pitts. It's just more about, hey, can he put it all together? So I have no problem seeing if that is true with Kyle Pitts.
Wow. Okay. All right. Man, I don't even know where to start. Really, I think for me, I think for me, like I watched like a lot of Kincaid just today just to see like
what the problem is.
Like what was going on. And one of the things that I seen is like I'm pretty sure in our head we believe like Dalton Kincaid is a better athlete than what he actually is.
Yeah.
There was a lot of situations where I shouldn't say a lot, but there were situations where Buffalo tried to line him up out wide earlier on in the season to take advantage of a corner down there for a jump ball situation. Didn't happen. There was a lot of situations where it was him and the defender would win. But then a lot of his catches were, release catches where, he'd block for 1,000, 1,002, 1,003, slip. There he is right there. A lot of other situations, he would just be working the middle of the field. And then as far as like his performance goes, he had 4 games where he finished in the top 12 as far as tight ends goes. And he had 1 game where he was a top 5 tight end. And again, a very common theme here. Shouldn't be shocked when I say this. Joe Brady's unit, 29th in passing rate at 67.9%. Not shocked from that right there. And he ran a lot out of the slot as well, man. So I think if you're looking for just safety, I think Dalton Kincaid is absolutely the play. If you're just looking for the 8-ball kiss of death, if you will, 4 for 40, and a potential touchdown, Dalton Kincaid is the guy. He's the guy for you, man, for sure. And then Kyle Pitts. I think obviously I've been on record before talking about how much I was in on Kyle Pitts last year and the year before that. His ADP is 16.2. Like you said, wouldn't it be funny if this was the year if everything popped for him? The one thing that I found really interesting this year as far as his usage goes was he was the most successful last season when he was getting vertical and the Atlanta Falcons were using him vertically in the pass game. That's where he had his 4 touchdowns and 267 yards. He had it there. He didn't have any 100-yard games last year. Everything was a career low for him. Lowest target rate last season. Lowest depth, average route of depth. And then, like you talked about, hopefully what this looks like with Michael Penix moving forward. Well, the thing with Michael Penix is that his target share actually went from 13% with Kirk Cousins down to 10% with Michael Penix. So that's a little bit scary for me. And then the one name that you did not mention when you were going over all the pass catches for the Atlanta Falcons, you didn't mention Bijan Robinson. And Bijan Robinson. So Bijan Robinson, so he would be fourth in the pecking order if you look at it from that standpoint between Bijan Robinson, Drake London, and Ray McCloud. I mean, it's not Ray McCloud, but Darnell Mooney. He would be the fourth guy in the pecking order. So I think it's more or less of a situation for me where if I have absolutely went bottom tight end, this might be a situation where I end up with both of these guys on my team. But if I didn't have the option to take both of these guys, I think Dalton Kincaid is he's the safest play at this point based off of what we've seen, because I do believe the difference, and you mentioned it already, is like, hey, the guy I want to have from the Buffalo Bills' offense is Josh Allen. That's the guy I want to have. All right, cool. But the guy that you want to have for the Atlanta Falcons is Bijan Robinson. And obviously, I think we know, obviously, besides position, what the difference is going to be is that Bijan is going to be the guy that they're going to center their offense around, and they're going to give him the football. And for me, Dalton Kincaid, yeah, man, that's where I'll hang out at this year as far as tight ends go. Yeah.
Why are they doing that to you right now?
It's all love. It's all love.
Of course. So you got Kincaid then?
Yeah, I got Kincaid. That's where I'm gonna go, and then we'll move right into another Buffalo Bill as well. We'll go with Josh Allen and Jayden Daniels in this versus here, man. And this one is a little bit. This one is a little bit tougher. Again, watching Dalton Kincaid all day, obviously you end up watching Josh Allen all day as well. And one of the things I've seen this year is just Josh Allen last year, man, he played some really good football. He's had back-to-back seasons of double-digit rushing touchdowns. He's 29 years old, man. So his attempts are starting to go down. And I think you'll still continue to see his actual rushing attempts go down. But when they get inside the red zone, obviously that's where Josh Allen is going to be successful. Now, differently from Devonta Smith, who, wasn't necessarily trying to avoid hits. When you're watching film on Josh Allen, you see him trying to go down a lot more. You see him trying to go out of bounds. I know he had the broken bone in his hand and some other things last year. So obviously him keeping himself protected is that is the end all be all for the Buffalo Bills. No question about it. They bring back all 5 offensive linemen from last year, which is absolutely insane to see and to hear at this point in time. And then this is what makes the difference. This is what makes Josh Allen in fantasy football. This is rushing ability and him being able to use his big body inside the red zone. Last year, he only had 22 design runs last year. That was down from the previous year. He had over 106 yards rushing last year on design runs. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean, just that amount as far as rushing. Obviously, he had some broken plays as far as scrambles and things like that right there. But for the 5th time in his career, he scored a combined 40 touchdowns. Last year, he played flawless. He didn't have any fumbles. He had 6 interceptions, which that was the least amount that he has had during this time. Yeah, and so then also just to put it in perspective as well, I believe I think he's either tied or he's just slightly ahead of Thurman Thomas in all-time rushing touchdowns for the Buffalo Bills. So, to put that in perspective, I don't know if we've seen the peak of Josh Allen rushing, or if we're going to see that number start to come down. But just watching him play against teams like the Baltimore Ravens, the Kansas City Chiefs, teams that he was obviously consciously aware had a bigger impact on the season and standing in playoffs, etc. You see those kind of things. So from him, but he's going at the 3-1 right now, which I think is obviously fair if you look at him. And then you turn the book, man, and you turn the page and you look at Jayden Daniels, man. Jeez, dude. The difference between the two of these guys is that Jayden Daniels isn't somebody who's going to bully himself into the end zone to find touchdowns. That's not his game. That's not what he does. As a matter of fact, last year, he had the most scrambles on 3rd and 4th down converted into first downs. That was the second most ever in NFL history. So, and then for him on scramble plays last year, 600 yards. That was first in the NFL. Baker Mayfield was second with 379. So you know what you're getting with Jayden Daniels as far as like what he brings to the table. And then one of the other things that I thought was highly, highly impressive with Jayden Daniels, 74% completion percentage last year against zone defense. And he's also one of those players that actually he does better when you blitz him. I believe his QB rating last year was like 114. Yeah, his QB rating last year was 114 versus the blitz. So this is a really, really unique situation that we have here. And just before I go into my actual pick, like I wanted to see, like for context, who are some rookies that busted onto the scene and gave us like really big seasons. Obviously, we know about RG3. We know what he did with his 30 touchdowns, 25 passing, 6 rushing. CJ Stroud was one of only 5 quarterbacks to surpass 4,000 yards. And he had 470 yards in a game. And then you have Justin Herbert and Cam Newton and Dak Prescott and Russ Wilson and Baker Mayfield. So that's a really great class to be in. I say it from a fantasy perspective, it's a really great class to be in. They all equal to 0 Super Bowl rings for real football. But overall, like a great class to be in from like a fantasy perspective. And one of the things that made Jayden Daniels so valuable last year was where you got him, And so now you're having to actually spend that draft capital on him and hope that he at least hits exactly what he did last year, or as crazy as this sounds, be even better than what he was last year. Josh Allen has been consistently one of the top 5 quarterbacks in fantasy football over the last 4 to 5 years. So I'm in this situation, man, I'm going to give the slight edge to Josh Allen. And the only reason why I'm giving the slight edge to Josh Allen is because what he can do inside of the red zone, and he is the Buffalo Bills running game. And then you think about Jayden Daniels. Jayden Daniels last year was sacked 47 times last year. That was the 6th most in the NFL. And I put it out on X last night talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers. That was the one team last year that was actually able to hold him under a 80 QB rating last year. Actually, I believe it was actually under 70 QB rating last year. So the Pittsburgh Steelers actually had the formula to be able to slow down Jayden Daniels. Hey, man, I'm out here spitting facts, baby. I'm just out here spitting heat. It just so happens it happens to be about the Pittsburgh Steelers. But they have the formula for what it was in order to be able to keep Jayden Daniels under wrap. So give me Josh Allen this year. Next year, if Jayden Daniels goes out and does his thing, I'm probably going to get ready to move Jayden Daniels into one of those top 3 spots for next year if he does it.
Yep. Yeah, sounds on par. Because what I'll say is that, yeah, Jayden Daniels has a remarkable and astonishing rookie year and one of the best we'll probably ever see. Just because of what he accomplished, not only for a fantasy perspective, but also, for the NFL and playoffs and them literally being that close to being in the Super Bowl his rookie year. So there was a lot to go when it comes to Jayden Daniels on that. I will say, though, that when it comes to both of these guys, when it comes to ADP, like, yeah, you can't go wrong with either one. I'll be ecstatic about either one of these guys being taken in the 3rd round. Like you said, slight edge would go to Josh Allen. It's because of his consistency over the last several years. Since 2022, he's been a QB3 or better as a finish. In the last 3 of the last 4 years, he's led the NFL when it comes to points inside the red zone 3 of the last 4 years. And best thing about Josh Allen right now is that he is, he used to be such a turnover machine last couple of years before the last 2 seasons. Like, he was like a turnover machine. Like you said, turnovers wise, he had 8 total, only 2 lost fumbles, 6 interceptions. 6 interceptions was a career best for him in terms of, interception thrown. So Josh Allen is really the best thing about Josh Allen has been not only that, he gets, he delivers in the red zone, but also he is just a, complete player that's been doing it for quite some time, consistency. Like you said, I think the attempts per game kind of slowed down a little bit because, again, like Buffalo for the last couple of seasons hasn't, and again, been more of that balance or offense. The only time they've been constantly throwing the football more is when they're in more shootout performances. But that's just what it is with Josh Allen. I think they like to do the ball control, just like similar to how the Ravens do. But I will say that, yeah, I mean, like you said, I think Josh Allen gets a slight bump, and I'm gonna give him the respect. But trust me, Jayden Daniels nipping on his heels literally. Because I do like from Jayden Daniels, like, we go into this situation where it's like, from a fantasy perspective, it's not that, these guys can't consistently do it year in and year out. Lamar is right in his prime. You know what I'm saying? Like, people are taking him even over Josh Allen, Jayden Daniels. But when it comes to this conversation, Jayden Daniels really nipping on Josh Allen's heels. You can't go wrong with either one. But yeah, I mean, Josh Allen gets a slight bump. He'll probably go earlier, so it can be Jayden Daniels just a little bit later. Because the one thing I want to see from Jayden Daniels really, for a fantasy perspective, is that he not only just stays healthy, because he was kind of banged up last season a little bit, because like you said, that offensive line was makeshift at times. But I want to see from him in terms of his rushing projection, do what he did a little bit more, obviously, but from a selfish standpoint on fantasy purposes, a bit more rushing touchdowns, at 6.
What's crazy?
What?
He was second in carries for amongst quarterbacks, second in
Crazy,
rushing
right?
yards, third in design carries, and third in rushing touchdowns. So, he's the complete package, bro.
Sure is.
He's the complete package, man.
He sure is. And, I think also, he very underrated when it came to, from your passing perspective. So, yeah, I mean, Jayden Daniels definitely, like I said, nipping on Josh Allen's heels literally. So, yeah, love to have either one of them. All right. The moment we've all been waiting for.
Yeah.
Is there a new king in the West? Is there between these two running backs, is there a situation where Jeanty finds himself as king of the RBs this year, as a rookie running back being drafted, 6 overall to the Raiders, CMC, he's been at the mountaintop a couple times before, to be exact, 4 times. So, it's interesting. Why don't you take it, Johnny? Where you at?
Oh, well, I mean, first of all, I'll start off by saying Alexander Mattison led the Raiders last year in rushing with 420 yards and 4 touchdowns.
I did not expect that. I did not expect you just to say Alexander Mattison out of nowhere.
Or as my boy would call him, Alexander Medicine. And so, for me, just trying to kind of wrap my mind around this here, because this is a scenario for me where I'm like, okay, we have a rookie running back going to a very bad situation with the Raiders. Granted, they just got Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly, so obviously gonna want to run the ball. And then you got Christian McCaffrey, coming off of an injury-riddled season, to say the less. So I start, kind of trying to cook up some things here. So I said, all right, well, let me take a look at rookie running backs who have been selected in the top 10 over the last 25 years. And who are they? And I'm going to put you on the spot real quick, just, to kind of set this up.
Okay.
Give me a couple names who were top 10 running back picks over the last 25 years.
Top 10 picks by running back over the last 20.
Teams years. Actually selected him in the NFL draft in the top 10.
Saquon Barkley.
Yep.
Let's go deep in my bag here. Steven Jackson?
Nope. I'll give you one more before I start rattling. So I'll give you one.
Obviously CMC, but
CMC, yep. CMC and Saquon. All right. So I'll give you
Derrick Henry.
I'll give you Lenny Fournette. I'll give you Zeke Elliott.
Yeah, Zeke Elliott. Yep.
And there's one more guy.
Damn. No, just give it to us.
Bijan Robinson.
Really?
Bijan Robinson. All right. That's so I'll start looking at these guys, and I start looking at what does the performance look like for all of these guys when they were rookies, just so I can kind of try to get a feel and see all right, what should I expect? What is the worst case scenario? What is the best case scenario? Right? What does it look like? All right. So when I'm looking at all this, like Zeke comes onto the scene, 1,631 yards, 15 touchdowns, 32 receptions, right? Like behind that nasty Dallas offensive line. Well, we all know the Las Vegas Raiders, that ain't the Dallas Cowboys offensive line. So, okay, we can kind of take that away. All right. Christian McCaffrey bust onto the scene with 80 receptions for the Carolina Panthers in his rookie season, 651 yards, 435 yards rushing. All right. Well, Ashton Jeanty, like we know he can be used in the passing game, but I don't think he's going to be used 80 times in the passing game. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure I caught a stat at some point in time over the weekend that Pete Carroll has never had a receiver catch over 100 passes. So there we go. Then I look at Bijan Robinson. I'm like, all right, like he had a situation where he came in with a very blah offense, 976 yards, 4 touchdowns. Okay, Saquon Barkley, 91 receptions for Saquon Barkley, 1,300 yards rushing.
Yeah.
So I'm starting to think, man, that Ashton
that Giants offensive line wasn't the best.
Terrible. My gut is telling me he's probably somewhere between Lenny. I'm going somewhere between Lenny Fournette and Bijan Robinson. So I'm thinking like if Ashton Jeanty gets away with a season with, let's call it 1,000 yards rushing, and let's just say 425 receiving and 45 to 50 receptions. All right, like that's not bad. Like that's not a bad season at all from a rookie running back. And then that means he's probably getting you around 200 to 225 points. And right now, man, he's going in the first round. And, you know, that's risque business. And yes, I'll put the lisp on it just to make it nasty because it's risky business. All right.
You been practicing that?
Nah, man, it's just natural. And just before I go to CMC, in those seasons, Saquon and Zeke, 293 fantasy points and 294 fantasy points, respectively. So now we go to Christian McCaffrey. So again, very similar. Let's play another song and dance. Who, as running backs over the age of 29, have had, we'll call it successful seasons. And I mean, when I say successful, we can talk about from a rushing perspective. We can say from a scoring touchdowns perspective. We can talk about receptions. One of them the first one I'll give you because this was when we got Peyton. We got Walter Payton, right? So at 30 years old. Yeah, all right. Yeah. So, all right. Then we got Alvin Kamara at 68 receptions last year because it doesn't look like you want to
talk about timeline perspective. Still,
yeah. I'll just play my fun game by myself. Don't worry. Then we have LeGarrette Blount with 18 rushing touchdowns. Again, these are running backs.
You have went out for a second.
Rushing touchdowns for LeGarrette Blount. And we got Priest Holmes, and these are all running backs over the age of 27. Second most rushing touchdowns in league history at 27. We know about what Raheem Mostert did on the fluky year with the 49ers. Corey Dillon, when clock killing Corey Dillon here in New England. 1,635 yards. Your boy Curtis Martin, 1,697 yards in 2004. Man, so
what about Frank Gore?
Again, big seasons, not just being there. We're talking about big seasons, right? Okay. Because Frank Gore at age 30 was not being drafted in the first round of fantasy drafts.
Oh, well, yeah, no.
So what we're saying is, and obviously we had what Derrick Henry did last year. So either you believe that Christian McCaffrey is going to be healthy and defy every odd that is stacked against him, whether it being age and whether it being health, you're saying that he's going to defy that. And I'm pretty sure most of the time, I think I seen something that said running backs over the age of 29, they pretty much give you around 72% of what their peak performance is. So if they're giving you 72% of their peak performance, and then you have Ashton Jeanty with the potential upside that he's got, I never thought I would say this, but I feel a little bit more comfortable taking Ashton Jeanty right now than I do Christian McCaffrey. and that's scary hours for me. That's scary hours for me. And I say this, Christian McCaffrey has been our generation's LaDainian Tomlinson. And even still with him only playing, like I believe it was the 4 games that he played in last year, he still he still out received Isaac Garendo. Oh no, he tied Isaac Garendo in receptions last year, and Isaac Garendo had 6 more receiving yards than CMC did last year. So for everybody that's like, oh well, Isaac Garendo can just step into that role and nothing's gonna change. Nah, that ain't the case, bruh. That ain't the case, bruh. Like that ain't it. That ain't it. So for me right now, I would feel a little bit safer taking Ashton Jeanty. Not that I want to be in a situation where I have to take either one of these guys. That's the point of the exercise. If we had to take one of them, who would we take? Go ahead and give me Ashton Jeanty in this space, man. Unless something changes dramatically between now and August, and I'll roll the dice and see what happens, man. Because history says if you're a running back that's been taken in the top 10, you're probably going to do pretty well. And the one guy that didn't do pretty well in that space as a rookie running back, is the guy that we're talking about, Christian McCaffrey, with his 148.6 fantasy points. So he's the outlier in this space. And now we have a rookie running back and we have a 29-year-old running back in CMC. So I think you might be the outlier again, man.
Yeah. I mean, look, this is a really good fit. It's going to be really fun debate. So we're going to be a new king of the West there, Mr. Ashton Jeanty for you. New king of the West, huh?
Hey, man, listen, I gave you my take, man. I gave it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gave it, brother.
What I'll say is that when it comes to CMC, my whole thing with him is, can the bounce back happen? Absolutely, because CMC is still that talented. The way the Niners use running backs historically behind, Kyle Shanahan makes a ton of sense. The way they use, run zoning game, gapping schemes, and Trent Williams behind that left tackle coming back. Like, a lot of things can happen for the Niners. If you're telling me to pick one of them, though, I will take Jeanty, though, because of Jeanty. The use on his side, 1. 2 is that he is a generational, I think, running back coming out. Like, just the way I've seen tape on him is absolutely really great in terms of how he can get to that outside and go, catching the football, literally just an all-purpose back. Goes into a Raiders offense that, the offensive line is not looking the best. Head coach and Pete Carroll, we all know that, he historically is just going to, stick with one running back. So my whole thing with him is that, and Chip Kelly obviously being there historically, the offense should improve. So will I be taking Jeanty top 4, top 5? No. I'll just wait and see what happens. That's why you drafted the back end this year, the draft. So you can make that happen. But I will say with CMC, to continue on CMC for a moment, the injuries and the historic, of history of the injuries stacking up, I really only want to take CMC as my, if I'm going, 2 running backs early, I want him as a second one, because I just don't want to take the risk of taking him as my hero RB and then not exactly it won't happen like it happened last year. But I just feel like the chronic injury, when you're hearing chronic stuff when it comes to from an injury perspective, is never good.
And you know what else is crazy when you say the chronic? All the injuries to his lower body have all been on the same leg.
Yep.
They've all been on the same leg.
Right. So it's hard to when you're talking about deciphering players from your first round pick, who you want, who you definitely should not be drafting first round at least. CMC, it's easy for CMC started to creep up by the days. CMC started to creep back up to that end of that first round, and that's where I don't feel comfortable taking him. If he's going second round, the first 3 rounds of that second round of that turn or whatever, I'll take a gamble on CMC there. But as a hero RB, even, it's definitely dicey because, again, Kyle Shanahan and these Niners, they just love to play games sometimes. So it's if CMC were to miss some time, it's all right, who benefits the most, right? Garendo, my guy Jordan James for Oregon, maybe gets a chance in there. Who knows? Obviously, the same can be said about Jeanty, but injuries are going to be injuries. So right. That being said, I mean, look, I agree with your analysis when it comes to Jeanty because he's a guy that, again, I think I'm not going to say that because I've seen some Barkley in his tape I've seen it. It just becomes more of the system he's starting to enter into. Like, yeah, it may not be the check down Geno, extend the third, whatever. However, he is a veteran quarterback, so he will do that. My whole thing with Jeanty really will be is that, is he going to, if he stays healthy and everything goes well, how high of a finish can he be? And for me, he could easily be a top 3 running back finish. It just comes down to, can the Raiders as a team in general be a bit more successful for him to have more opportunities to score more touchdowns and to have more production? So it's in the cards. I'm not going to say it's there, like all the way there, but there's a chance and optimism that there is. CMC for me, where he'll finish, ideally, like I still think all things finish well for him. Top 6 running back, top 8 running back. So he probably could still be going around the range where people are drafting him at cost.
Yeah.
But obviously, just like last year, things could easily go south. 1 game miss could turn into 4 games. So, and that's could be your season there too. But hey, I tell people, look, like if you're gonna do CMC, I'm not a complete fade or avoid on CMC. It's just more the draft cost for him. So, like I said, get yourself some protection. Like, get yourself some protection. Grab a guy that you like. If you're gonna go double running back in a situation, or if it just organically happens for you, grab CMC in that early second round. But literally, if I'm in the first round, I have the first 8 picks. I'm not exactly thinking about CMC in those first 8 picks because I want someone that is going to be, nothing's guaranteed, but I do want someone that I feel is going to be, and CMC is that in terms of for some people because he still could be like, hey, the risky, so pick him off, can still be the RB1 or overall best fantasy scorer. We can all be look like we dumb as hell.
Listen.
But at the same time,
it's there. It's there. This cat is actually, man, probably this year, if he does stay healthy, this cat's getting ready to pass over 2,000 fantasy points, bro, at running back. Like it's absolutely there. It's there. And to your point, man, like you can't control injuries, but like the things that like you can pay attention to and you can be aware of and can know is age and the position. And again, like all the names that we mentioned, Alvin Kamara last year, he started off like really hot last year, but again, was he there when you needed him in the fantasy playoffs? No, he was not. Derrick Henry is a freak among freaks. So like it makes sense that
the battering ram, he don't count.
there's your outlier, right? And even some of the names even some of the names that I had mentioned earlier, Priest Holmes in that space was running behind arguably the greatest offensive line ever in football. Like some people will tell you that in that space. Yeah, like that's a real thing. And then LeGarrette Blount with his 18 touchdowns with Tom Brady, bro, like you know what it is, man. When you got Tommy back there, like nobody's worried about the run game. So there's a lot of elements, and like I don't. And last year with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, it's the same thing, man. Like I don't know if Brock Purdy's the guy that like makes me go like, oh my god, like let's no. Like that's
fear in your heart.
Yeah, it just and bro, I like Brock Purdy, man. Like Brock Purdy got game, but like he don't got game like all these other situations and scenarios that we talked about or that I was mentioning with running backs that are over the age of 30. There's nothing special about this situation for Christian McCaffrey going into this season versus, a lot of those other situations, whether it be offensive line, whether it be quarterback, whether it be scheme, whether it's a brand new lease on life for playing running back. None of that is there for him. The only thing that's there for him this year is potentially proving people wrong and obviously being healthy and going to get a Super Bowl ring, man. So
yeah, that's fair. So where's the highest that you would take Jeanty then overall in a draft?
Oh,
the highest.
Man. Let's see. The highest that I would take Jeanty would be probably the highest. Oh, yeah. God, dude. The highest I would probably take him honestly would probably be like 15, maybe 16.
Wow. The
Yeah.
highest?
Yeah. Because I like everybody
Well,
that I'm
definitely not a first round pick for you.
no.
So
No,
neither of these guys are a first round pick at all.
No, not
in a
for
12
me.
team format, by the way.
No, yeah, no, I'm 100% accurate. Like I would take your boy. I'm in a space where I would actually feel comfortable taking Devonta over one of these guys in the second round, or if I was there on the turn. I'm in a space where I would take Derrick Henry at the 12th turn. Everybody knows how I feel about Nico Collins, so I would absolutely do that. And then you start to get into guys like Amon-Ra. I think Malik Neighbors and these two guys, I think that's a really interesting conversation. Yep. Just because, like, if you think it's Russell Wilson the entire year, not to like, I'm gonna go kind of off subject here, but if you think it's Russell Wilson the entire year, you had a chance to see what happened last year, and now everybody's all in on George Pickens, but last year they weren't in on George Pickens, and obviously scheme, I understand that plays a part of it, and usage, I get that for sure, but Russ was the quarterback. So I think, honestly, for me, I think it's a situation where if Jackson Dart is the quarterback or Jameis at some point, if it's Jameis, then it's going to feed families. So I think there's that. And that's really, for me, about where I start to draw the line is Malik Neighbors. Malik Neighbors and Christian McCaffrey and Ashton Jeanty. If I'm sitting there at 12 or 12, 13, and all those names are there, even at like 14, 15, I'm probably going to be a pretty sick individual at that point in time. And I probably would take Malik Neighbors, but I would be really intrigued to take Ashton Jeanty. For sure.
I'm saying I think Jeanty for me in a 12-team format, I think the highest I would take him is pick number 9 overall. I do think that Jeanty for me gets a first round grade because of what he can overall do from you saw what he did in college. He was like, not only just a freak in college, but just the way that he dominated in college. Obviously doesn't always translate to the NFL. But when, like you were saying, going back to your point, where you're getting a guy in your top 10 drafted high in a real draft, like there's real plans for the guy.
So who are you not drafting in the top 9? So
if I were to take it. So for me, it's more about like I as you know, we like grab our running backs early. So for me, like I'm not exactly always trying to grab a receiver in the first round. I just wait and see, what my other league mates want to do when it comes to receiver. I'm like, all right, well, you left me this guy. Thanks. Like left me Amon-Ra. Cool. No problem. Like I'm saying, it's a nice safe floor guy, whatever. In the second round. But yeah, look, if I'm drafting around like 9, 10, 11, or 12, if I take Jeanty, I think the player that at the moment for me, like it's probably Amon-Ra because he probably ends up going to that turn. Well, so we're talking about 8 or 9 overall pick. I would like to see if Amon-Ra came back to me in the second round just because of how people are reacting to him. So from a psychology standpoint, I think Amon-Ra is a nice floor play, just not the ceiling play. I think Amon-Ra is still great. I just would prefer if he was going to come back to me, I'll grab him. He probably won't, which is fine. I think the other guy that it pains me to say, but I always, I love Puka Nacua, but I wouldn't draft him 9th overall. Just because the injury history. There's also Devonta Adams in town now, so that's going to take away a little bit, but also, you can still gain it. I just don't think there's the biggest of ceiling with Adams coming into town because he will take away some touchdowns away from him.
Yeah, so Tay don't scare me with Puka. And last year I was scared of Puka, but Tay don't scare me with Puka. There's an environment where all three, all him.
Oh sure,
they can all coexist. But
totally. So I saw something earlier today that both Adams and Puka are projected for between the both of them are projected for 290 targets plus. So I'm not saying that I'm avoiding Puka per se. It's just, again, Puka for me is more of that turn pick than he is like a 9, an 8, 9, or 10 pick. So if I was picking like where I was saying the highest I'd probably take Jeanty is like 9th is where I probably would go. CMC, I really am trying to wait for like that second round, like early turn round. So if I'm the double, I would consider it, but it's a very long consider because depending on the, obviously if we're talking about season long, if we're talking about best ball, whatever, it depends on the room you're in. And it depends on who may someone like, CMC might end up going in some drafts. Like he might go in the middle of the second, but some people may have already taken him in the first round, which made it a little bit easier. like, okay, he's off the board. Perfect. Like everybody else. I'm like, I hate you. But I'll say this when it comes to both of these guys is that I'm in the camp of Jeanty definitely finishing higher than CMC, but I'm not going to discredit CMC because of just not only what he's done in the past, but also the system that he benefits from. That's also really important to remember for all our people out here watching, because systems are really important too. And that can make or break some players as well. So that being said, like when it comes to Jeanty, when it comes to CMC, I think there will be a new king in the West. That's Ashton Jeanty.
Dig that. No, well, man, been a good one tonight, man, for sure. And we got Scott Fish Bowl coming up next week, so
sure do. Wow.
Yeah, we got that. So maybe we can show the world our teams here, let them pick and choose who they like, whose team they like better. See what we got here. But yeah, that's pretty much, man, what I got. I think training camps are getting ready to start tomorrow or the day after, I believe.
I'm about to say that was later this week, but for some teams,
yeah. So training camp's getting ready to start kicking up. We got the Expo about 3 weeks away as well. So we're getting there, man. We're getting there for sure. So I'm pretty excited and pretty pumped about the next 2 or 3 weeks of my life.
Dope, man. Dope. Yep, you sure are, bro. Any final thoughts?
Final thoughts for the night are again, just ready to finish up. Yeah, not ready to finish up, but ready to start Scott Fish Bowl this week, man. I don't know if you did any, but not
prepping for you.
No, dude. No, it's not that, man. The mocks, man. Did a couple mocks, and they were pretty aggressive. They definitely look a lot different than they did a week ago, 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago. They definitely look a lot different. So I anticipate that being a lot different and a lot more fun, but definitely looking forward to that. And obviously looking forward to like I said, the Expo, and summer's quickly coming to an end, man. So that's all I got, brother. I don't have a whole lot, man. I left it all out on the field tonight, man. So what about you?
Yeah, final thoughts for me is that been diving a little bit more into best ball. So in terms of just like how just things are shaping out. Plan actually, we want to do one live in general just to see how that goes. So you and I can do a live one together on this channel and really get our overall team together. What it would be like when we combine our brains together for one team. So that should be I know, right? I know, right? Be a Frankenstein team, right?
I don't know. It should be interesting. It should be something.
You know what?
It's gonna be something.
You know what? I don't like how you're not as optimistic.
No, I'm just thinking. I just already know how that's gonna go. Already know.
Oh my gosh, yo. No, you don't. Go ahead. This is a final thought segment. Go ahead.
What?
You said you already know what's how we're gonna go. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know. I get I'm pretty passive about just overall life in general, except for fantasy football shit. We're pretty chill guy. I'm a pretty chill guy. I'm pretty chill, man. But I'm like insanely competitive. Like,
man.
nice guy, just wildly competitive.
Competitive. We don't gotta be competitive. I'm saying we're on
I know,
team.
I
We're
know,
not
but
the same draft from
but
different teams.
I know, but what's gonna happen whenever it's like, oh, we disagree on a player, then yeah.
Then I bet you have one. You let me have one.
Oh
Whatever.
my God!
Like,
See, I can't do that. I can't do that. I cannot.
called sharing.
I can't operate in that space. I am terrible about that. Terrible.
Hey yo, man, that is hilarious.
Oh man. Who knows, man? We still got a lot of time, bro. So one way or another, man, we got a lot of time, a lot of drafts, man.
If you aren't following us on X, please do so below. These are the tags. That being said, we'll see you guys next week for another jam-packed show we got y'all for. Like John said, Expo's closing in. We got Scott Fishbowl this week. Like, there's a lot to come, a lot of topics to discuss. Hit us up as well. Got some guests coming on as well in the next couple of weeks. Also, we're going to be on a couple of shows as well. So, like, look for us, honestly. Until then, he's Johnny. It's Nick. We out. We see you next week. Peace.